Okay, so good morning everyone. In the our day 5 of state level workshop, latest trends in civil engineering, and today we have a talk on water resource theme, that is emerging trends and practices in the restoration and the conservation of rivers. And we have a speaker, Dr. Pranav Kumar D. Bangoenkar, who is a freelancer educator. So let me introduce our today's speaker. He has completed his BE Civil from MSU from in 2002. He has completed masters in civil engineering in irrigation water management specialization from the same institute, MS University, in 2004. He has completed his PhD in civil engineering from Kadi Sarva Vidyalay Gandhinagar in 2019. And after that he having the experience of academic for 13 years, and till date he is an independent researcher and self-employed in Vadodara, Surat, and having the designation of freelance educator, and he is giving some coaching and also giving training in the theme of QGIS. He received two awards, one at a national level as an active mentor, and second as on the state level by Gujkos, Department of Science and Technology. He has guided more than 5 projects under UG level, and also awarded best project at BTech level, and more than he has delivered more than 6 lecture in various conferences, workshop, and symposium. He published more than 10 research papers and attended more than 5 to 6 conferences, national, international, and more than 10 seminars he has attended in various reputed institutes like IIT Bombay, IIT RAM Ahmedabad, MSU Vadodara, then VIET, which is supported by Gujkos, then MS University, and more than 20 workshop he has attended. And he is very well acquainted with AutoCAD, then QGIS, Rainbow, GEFC, and he having two professional membership of one is the registered member of Hydrological Data User Group HDUG State Water Data Center, and second is life member of Indian Society for Technical Education. So on behalf of Civil Engineering Department, GEC Surat, and Indian Society for Technical Education, I would like to welcome Dr. Pranav sir for delivering the talk on emerging trend and practices in restoration and conservation of river. So now I request sir to start his session. Sir, mic over to you.
Thank you, Darshan sir, for such a nice introduction. First of all, I am very thankful to Professor B.M. Wader, Principal, DGGEC Surat, coordinators Vipin G. Yadav, Professor Vipin G. Yadav, Professor Darshan Mehta, and Professor Mayuri J. Patel for giving me such a nice opportunity to explore my thoughts in this theme, today's theme, emerging trends and practices in restoration and conservation of rivers. I will be going to start the presentation, and first of all, I would like to just
I request all the staff, please mute your mic. I don't want to give repeated this guideline to all the participants. Esha Goyal. મેડમ બહુ વર્સ્ટ બેચ આવી છે, બહુ ભંગાર.
Yeah. Darshan sir, shall I start? Darshan sir? Darshan sir? Am I audible? Hello, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir, audible, audible. Please continue.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. So, very good morning to all the participants of this workshop. Let me start the presentation with the basic fundamentals that we all know. Rivers are the water bodies which flows in the definite directions in a channelized way, right? Rivers also affects our culture and civilization since past. Many ancient civilizations evolved in along the banks of major rivers in India. Many cities like Haridwar, Rishikesh, Kolkata, Ayodhya, Varanasi, even Allahabad, they are famous only because of the major rivers. Festivals, fairs, social and religious activities are performed by people near the banks of the rivers. Taking bath in the rivers makes the stance and the mindset of our responsibility and sensitivity as a citizen to sustain and protect as well as conserve our rivers, which are our lifeline. These words, while taking bath, this is a famous Snan mantra which we used to recite. That is Gange cha Yamune chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalasmina Sannidhi Kutu. The meaning of this mantra, Snan mantra, is O rivers Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri. Please enrich the water I am bathing with your immense presence. Thus, uh,
uh,
the significance, yeah.
the significance, yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So significant. Yeah. Am I audible now, sir? Should I proceed? Okay. So, yeah. Thus, the importance and the significance of the holy rivers is there since ancient time in India. The rivers are actually millions years ago. They are old and they serve means they are serving us since their origin. We are 10,000 years old and rivers are millions years old. So pure river water is the main source of the fresh water for the survival of the human being on this planet Earth. So on one hand, rivers have helped us to serve us and for our survival. And since 1,000 years, they are helping us for our survival. They are giving us a sort of services, benefits, and many more. But due to some unplanned development during last few decades, our rivers are being destroyed. And now the days have come, like rivers are now looking forward for their survival. So with this rationale, I would be going to start today's presentation. That first of all, we will be going to discuss some global water resources scenario. Then we will be going to discuss about the Indian water resources. Then how rivers plays an important role in maintaining ecology and economical balance. What is the rationale why one should restore or rather conserve the river water resources, and which are the terminologies which are more or less related to restoration and conservation, which are the emerging trends and practices in the restoration of the rivers, as well as the emerging trend of environmental flows in India. Then we will be going to discuss few case studies which are relevant to the restoration of the river. Then which are the required coordination against the constraints which are prevailing in the river restoration projects. And finally, we will be concluding the session with the question answer session and suggestion part. So with this, let me first brief the presentation. Well, as we all knows that the major part of water, that is 96%, is stored in ocean, whereas hardly 2.5% is of fresh water. The breakup of that fresh water is again, we can understand like it is almost locked in glaciers and ice caps with the 70% approximately. And 30% is in the form of groundwater, which we cannot get easily, which is not easily accessible. Uh, Hardly 1.3% of that 2.5% freshwater resources are available as a surface and other freshwater resources form. Now, the third column, which is on the right side bar, it shows the breakup of the surface water, in which we can see like 73% of the fresh surface water is stored in the ice and snow form, 20% in lakes, and only hardly 0.46% fresh water is available in rivers, and which is our lifeline. So point is like what one has to think of, the rivers are having contributing hardly 0.46% of the freshwater resources. So these water resources, this river as a essential water resource, we have to they are dependent. I mean, human beings are also dependent. Aquaculture is also dependent on these river resources. So we should take a rational, we should take a active participation in restoring these valuable river resources. On the other hand, if we can check the volumetric analysis, the rivers hardly contribute 0.006% of the freshwater resources, and they are contributing only 0.0002% of the total water resources on the earth. So with the volume of approximately 2000 kilometer cube, these rivers are serving us in a many ways. They are serving us in the many aspects. So if these rivers are really valuable to us, if their volume is comparatively this much less as a freshwater resources, then we should think of that how we can restore them, how we can earlier, as I aforementioned, I have that how we can think for their survival now, because they they had since last many decades, many years, millions of years, these rivers have given us sort of benefits, sort of services. So now this is our time to just think of their survival. Next slide. This is the common water cycle which I have just presented over here. As we all know very well, evaporation will be the starting point of water cycle. Approximately 5 lakh kilometer cube of water is evaporated from the all over the world ocean, and 75,000 kilometer approximately water is getting evaporated from the land and other water bodies. Now, this evaporated water, of course, reaches to atmosphere as a water vapor, and then next to that, it gets a turbulent diffusion. It reaches up and up, transported via air flux, and when it gets the lower temperature, this wet air falls, and the water vapor is which is transferred in the form of liquid or solid form. It come back, it condensed and come back to the earth in the form of precipitation. Now interesting is the amount of precipitation which is falling back to the world ocean is approximately 4,60,000 kilometers. So evaporation is approximately 5 lakh kilometer cube, whereas precipitation is approximately 4,60,000 kilometers. So this net gap of 40,000 kilometer cube, which is excess water, which is evaporated, that combines with the water which is evaporated from the land and other water bodies, and this is the amount from the ocean which is contributed in the formation of the river runoff, lakes, glaciers, and subsurface water and other forms of water resources. And finally, these are the resources which creates the biosphere on the Earth's surface. Now, interestingly, why rivers are to be stressed out? Means why one should carry out focus on the rivers? They are the beneficiary part, if we can think of in as a part of river runoff. The river runoff is, if we can check the period of renewal, mainly if we are considering the loss due to evaporation as a governing factor and renewal to the individual form of water, then the simultaneous water storage in the river channel all over the world is renewed every 16 days. So that means it explains the great importance of the river runoff as a main source of fresh water for human needs. So that is why the reason that rivers are beneficial to us. Rivers are serving us. Rivers are they are lifeline to us. They are main source of fresh water. Their renewal time is less. So we have to take maximum benefits from the river. We should explore the all the tangential and tangible and non-tangible benefits from the river. But on the other hand, rivers are to be survived. Rivers are to be restored. Rivers are to be conserved. Rivers are to be rejuvenated. Rivers are to be all the mitigation sort of protection type of measures are to be taken for rivers. This Indian water resources we can thoroughly go that the geographical area of India is almost 330 million hectare, which contributes hardly 2.4% area of the world, and India more or less gets average annual rainfall of 1200 millimeter, and average annual precipitation in form of volume is 4000 billion cubic meter. And mainly India receives the its precipitation in June to September month. That is 75% of that 3000 almost billion cubic meter of precipitation is occurring in the month of June to September. Now natural runoff is almost 2000 billion cubic meter, which is useful to us, which is means which we can take care of, which we can conserve, which we can restore. So considering all the potentials of the different natural river runoff system prevailing in India, the estimated utilizable surface water resources are hardly 690 billion cubic meter. So this is the point which we should take care of, that we have limited river water resources, and they are useful to us at all, but yes, they should be restored again and again. The efforts are made over here to just represent the various river basins. Central Water Commission has just divided the whole India into Indian geographical area into 20 river basins. They are being represented. Some are like Indus and Ganga, Brahmaputra, which is the largest basin of India, which contributes almost a major part of population of India. Next to that, Sabarmati, Mahi, Narmada, which are belonging to Gujarat. Even Tapi, they are belonging to Gujarat. Godavari on this central part, Mahanadi, and on the southern side, the Spanner, Kaveri, which is again a biodiverse river, Krishna River, and this in this way, the whole geographical area is being divided into river basins. These river basins are having their own specification, means their own catchment area, their own potential of water resources, and uh, here are the different aspects of this all see that Ganga is a major contributor in a utilizable water, uh, and here almost 80 BCM, 80 billion cubic meter water is being contributed by rivers of Gujarat like Sabarmati, Mahi, rivers flowing in a Kutch region, Narmada, Tapi, etc. Now here the point is like the rivers are being classified in many ways. They are being classified in a topographic aspect. They are being classified in the form of alluvial or non-alluvial. They are being classified as a perennial, that is which are flowing even long after the last rainfall, or seasonal rivers, which flows for a short time after the rainstorm. Intermittent streams, which are partially perennial in the wet part of the year and partially ephemeral in the during the drier part of the year. Uh, Rivers can be affluent. River means their water surface level is lies above the local groundwater table. They can be influent type of one. It means where the groundwater is contributing to the water surface of the river. Well, morphological aspects can be also considered. The source can be considered, whether they are Himalayan rivers or peninsular rivers. Many more classifications are available. Based on the area, the catchment area, the river basins of India are being classified as major river basins, which are the having area more than 20,000 square kilometer. There are 14 numbers. Medium scale catchment areas, which are ranging from 2,000 kilometers to 20,000 square kilometer, are of 44 numbers. Minor catchment areas means where their area extent is less than 2,000 square kilometer. They are of 55 numbers. Now, uh, here we have just reached to the point, like what sort of benefit, what sort of services we are getting from the rivers, and why, what are the means, why, how river have played an important role since ancient time, and which sort of tangential and tangible and intangible benefits we have got from the rivers. So if we can summarize the total services which are being imparted by the river as an ecosystem, then provisional services, regulatory services, cultural services, and supporting services. Four major folders can be considered. So provisional services are those services which are mainly considered as a products which we are obtaining from the river as an ecosystem, whereas regulatory services are the benefits which we avail due to the regulation of the river as a river ecosystem. Cultural services, which are of course non-materialistic benefits which we are getting from the river ecosystem, and at last supporting services, which are underlying processes and services which are of course necessary for the production of all other three types of services. So aforementioned, there are many services are being availed by the human beings from the rivers. And if we can list out various provisional services like food, fuel, power generation, medicine, drinking water, domestic water, industrial water supply, irrigation water supply, navigation and transport, genetic resources. This all the sort of provisional services we are getting from the river as a ecosystem. So more or less, these services we are availing, and for our this sort of products we are getting. We are getting drinking water, we are getting domestic water, industrial water. These are the three major components of the provisional service. Irrigation water, of course, and power generation, hydropower generation, navigation, and many more services are being provided by the river as a ecosystem. We cannot ignore the regulatory services which are being given by the river as an ecosystem. Air quality control, erosion control, water regulation, continuous continuum of the water throughout the stretch of the river, disease control by imparting pure water quality, biological control, role of the predators and parasites in controlling the pest and disease, waste management, self-assimilation capacity, storm control, self-cleaning, climate regulation, wildfire control, and many more. So these are the regulatory services which we are getting from the river. Efforts are just to get ourselves recall that which services we are availing. The cultural services, tourism is being supported by the river. Recreation we are getting from the river. Education, spirit, inspiration, culture, socialism, enthusiasm, peace, comfort, sense of place, civilization. What many more things are there, which are which we the entire culture and civilization is being governed by the cultural services of the rivers. Supporting services, water cycle itself is being balanced by the rivers as a freshwater resources, soil formation, nutrient cycles, plain fertility, biodiversity, biomass production, atmospheric oxygen balance, photosynthesis, spatial structure. All these supporting services are being also uh, given by the rivers as a ecosystem. So ultimately, more or less, if we can summarize the contents like the provisional services, the services like cultural services, regulating services, supporting services. Yes, we are benefited by the rivers. We are benefited in many ways by the rivers. Rivers are having certain values. Rivers are having sort of social benefits. Rivers are having economic benefits. Rivers are having strategic benefits. Yes. Social benefits like health and hygiene are being maintained by the river. Science and technology development are being maintained by the river. Crop fishes and livestock are being governed by the rivers. Prosperity of the country are being governed by the rivers. Agriculture, industry, transport, energy, industrial sectors, the whole economy of the country is being governed by the rivers. Strategic benefits, regional security, water security, growth in the economy, disaster risk management, risk reduction, management, all these things are being taken care by the rivers. So this we can consider as the values of the rivers. So now, point is like rivers are providing services to us. Rivers are providing values, river values for us. So, but on the other hand, due to in the beginning I have mentioned, due to some unplanned practices, maybe urbanization, industrialization, and increase in agricultural product, domestic waste, our rivers are directly or indirectly threatened. So more or less, if we can summarize the major threats to the rivers are domestic water pollution, agriculture water pollution, and industrial water pollution. Generation of large amount of organic and non-biodegradable waste from the urban cities is a major factor. Increase in a garbage load is again there. Slow sewage treatment plants, or rather release of partially or untreated sewage into the river bodies are common problems. Agricultural water pollution. See, one third of the land in India is irrigated to generate two-thirds of Indian population, means farm products. And rest is managed by the rain-fed areas. Excessive use of this fertilizer and pesticides, somewhere deterioration of the irrigation structures causes seepage loss, salinity problem, waterlogging problem in the floodplains of the rivers. Those are to be addressed. Industrial sectors. See, industrial sectors account for 8% of water use. On the other hand, they contribute 20% of the income to the national economy. But sometimes various sectors of industry like textile industries, chemical and metal industries, sometimes refineries, sugar mills, leather processing industries, they plays a major role sometimes in as a point or non-point sources of water pollution to the river. So here briefly we would be going to summarize the contents of the domestic water pollution sources: the organic waste, non-biodegradable waste, unscientific garbage disposal, which is a major concern, urban sewage, partially or untreated wastewater, slow sewage treatment plant, insufficient or inadequate sanitation practices, lack of investment in efficient treatment plants. All these things are to be considered as a challenge in the domestic water pollution sectors. On the other hand, the agricultural water pollution are occurring due to heavy metals through the agricultural fields, nutrients, salinity issue, excess use of fertilizers, insecticides and pesticides, sediments, organic matters and pathogens. Industrial pollutions are been governed by the either release of the alcohol or sugar from the sugar industries, maybe heavy metals from the industries, fluorinated complex compounds, ammonia and urea, acid and alkalis or solvents, PET products, phenols, hydrocarbons, dyes and pigments, and many more. So the thing is like uh, uh, these things are there. Domestic water pollution is there, agriculture pollution is there, industrial sector pollution is there. So with this existing pollution uh, causes, there are some indirect threats also to the rivers, which we can summarize in the form of like distorted water qualities of tributaries of the rivers. See, until we are not restoring the tributaries of the rivers, how the main river will be restored? If we wish to restore the main river, that tributaries are to be restored. So that is the thing. Regulated and fragmented flows. Flow regulation plays an important role that we will going to see in the next slides also. Over abstractions of the water from the rivers, human encroachment, religious factors, interception activities which are not allowing the water to reach into the groundwater table, climatic changes, global warming, decreased self-cleaning capacity and reduced resilience. These are the major indirect threats to the river. The last point, which is means actually all the rivers are having self-cleaning capacity. They do have their self means resilience capacity. But when the pollution load exceeds that self-cleaning capacity, rivers actually dies. The recent research have shown that during this April 2020, that water quality of lower Gangetic Delta has been means especially in DO proxy, has been increased drastically. The DO level in this river, the lower Gangetic Delta river, has been increased to 12 to 38% compared to the last 3 decades. So it is not like that. That rivers are having their self-cleaning capacity. If they are being relieved from the anthropogenic activities of the human beings, they can reheal themselves. They can restore themselves back. These are some other media coverage. Lockdown improves the water quality of Ganga and Yamuna. The Times of India has also noted that Ganga and Yamuna both have been found with a good concentration of DO, and the COD and BOD load has also been decreased. These are the DPCC and CPCB reports regarding Yamuna River. Significant increase in the fresh water, wastewater, the pollutants caused by the wastewater are being diluted. First point. Second point is significant reduction in the COD levels and improvement in the water quality. Stoppage of solid waste dumping, construction and demolition materials, puja materials, washing and bathing activities, unauthorized dumping of septages has improved the water quality of Yamuna. This is GPCB report of water quality of rivers of Gujarat. The stretches of Sabarmati, Shedi, and Vishwamitri, Makhadi, which are mainly affected by industrial wastewater discharge, have been significantly improved during this COVID-19 pandemic period. Whereas stretches of means these are the next are the rivers like Bhogabo, Bhadar, and a stretch of the Almakhadi, which is affected by the domestic wastewater, is not that much shown significant improvement in the water quality because they are mainly the rivers are being means yes, rivers are having their self-cleaning capacity. Rivers are having their restoration capacity. The efforts are made over here to just show how river Yamuna has improved. A documentary has been collected over here. I hope this is visible, Darshan sir. Lockdown period. Yeah, is it visible? No? Ah, yes, yes. Yes, thank you, thank you. Next to river Ganga, the water quality of Yamuna river has also improved during this COVID-19 lockdown period. two things can be done simultaneously: control of point and non-point sources of pollution to the river, and at the same time restoration and conservation of the river. So efforts are required from both the ends. Now this is regarding Ganga river near Haridwar. So yes, rivers are having their self-cleaning capacity. They are restored back during this lockdown period, and the river Ganga and Yamuna both were means found in a sparkling nature. So if we can control the pollution load on the river in a scientific way, and if we are trying to conserve and restore them on their old state, that will be a solution to the sustainable development. Uh, Actually, river reacts to the human actions. Sometimes water quality issues in their own water. Sometimes they are flooded. Sometimes uh, they are being facing the drought, and sometimes we can find the aquaculture is also affected by the alterations which are made in the river by human action. So yes, rivers reacts to the human action. As means the thing is like, if river will react according to our actions. If our actions will get towards the restoration direction, it will be restored back. And if we will going to just propagate our continue our anthropogenic activities, the results will be likewise. So now it is all our understanding that how we can carry out restoration, how we can carry out conservation. So here in this slide the efforts are made to just explore some basic terminologies which are more or less widely used in the conservation of river projects: protection, rehabilitation, improvement, reclamation, creation, mitigation, restoration, and conservation. These terminologies are exchangeably used in the when carrying out the river restoration projects. Actually, restoration and conservations are very close to each other, but they are differing also. Uh, Restoration stands for the re-establishment of aquatic function, re-establishment of the physical, chemical, biological characteristics of the river. It is a sort of recovery of the damaged or degraded ecosystem. Or rather, we can consider it as a establishment of the improved hydrologic, geomorphic, ecological processes, and replacing the existing lost, damages, and compromised elements of the natural system. So here we are trying to re-establish the health of the river. We are just trying to recover the damaged and destroyed components of the ecosystem of the river. And in conservation, we are maintaining or rather protecting the existing river ecosystem structure, or other functional and economical components of the river structure in an existing state. So there is a very minute difference between restoration and conservation. Restoration addresses repairing the river ecosystem, whereas conservation addresses the maintenance of the whatever it is. We have to maintain that river ecosystem in its existing state. Restoration addresses the renovation of the entire water ecosystem in a desirable class, whereas conservation addresses the protection of the whatever state it has. Restoration is a long process. It takes decades, rather centuries, to get the river restored. Whereas conservation is a short-term action. Means we can immediately decide the goal and we can conserve the river for in that existing state for a particular goal. Restoration is thinking about what has been lost, whereas conservation is thinking about what is left. With this, the question is still that why to restore and conserve the rivers. So yes, the bottom line of discussion, like the ultimately rivers are to be restored for making them perennial. River has to be restored for restoration of local bodies, local water bodies, and enhancing the groundwater table recharges. Rivers are to be restored for minimizing the threats to the rivers. Rivers are to be restored for availing maximum services and benefits from the rivers. Rivers are to be restored for getting benefits, especially downstream regions of the river. This understanding, if rivers are restored, first rivers are restored and then they are conserved, it will going to give us a sort of sustainability in future. What if this rivers are not restored or conserved? Then what may happen? Yeah, of course, no water for future generation, dead fields and no forest, no flora and fauna, no food, no fish. Of course, that it will going to it will be directed to the lowering of the socio-economic condition, maybe conflicts and wars, disease and deaths. So these all things are the rationals which for which we should take care of our rivers, poly rivers, for which we should think of our rivers. While availing benefits and services from the rivers, in our back of mind, we all should always think of that our all the actions and our all the practices should be towards the restoration and conservation of the. Now, this is the common practice that while restoring and conserving the river basin in an integrated river basin management way. First of all, assess the present condition of the river and its state. This requires a reconnaissance survey. Go in the field, check the problems, identification of the problems, and define goals. We have to, of course, we have to reach to the rivers. We have to feel the river. We have to go to the stakeholders of the river. We have to identify their problems, what they are facing. Then we should define the goal that, okay, my river should be in this particular habitat condition. Just we have to then analyze and assess the rather qualitative aspect and quantitative aspect of the river, socio-economic aspect of the river, other many aspects like spiritual aspects, many more aspects in whatever we can include in our visionary plan, and accordingly we should frame the framework and structure. We should also take care of the condition and restrictions which are prevailing in that particular river basin. Then of course we should define the class of the river. Like with this whole analysis and assessment, now we all stakeholders together wants this river to be in this class as well. And that is called the defining the status of the river to be achieved. For that, we should design the restoration program with all the sort of priorities and measure what should be given priority, and accordingly what should be addressed first and what is next. Monitoring is to be done simultaneously. First, monitoring is to be carried out before designing the restoration program. After designing the whole monitoring thing, we should implement this restoration program. During the implementation of this restoration program, continuously we should monitor and evaluate that whether we are achieving the goals which we have decided, whether we are getting the restoration what we are expecting, whether my river is in the state of for which I have thought of. If it is working, then it's fine. If it is somewhere, if it falls, it is surrounded by some constraint and restriction, then after monitoring and evaluating, we should again reanalyze it, reassess it. Again, rather we should redesign the restoration plan and we should go forward. So it is a cyclic process which may going to help our to restore and conserve our rivers. See, restoration of the river can be characterized in many categories. Rivers can be restored for their morphology. Rivers can be restored for their floodplain habitat. Rivers can be restored for their flow quality and quantity. Sometimes the rivers, many rivers are flowing in the means they are flowing in the during monsoon season, but they dries up during the summer. So perennial flow is to be there. Sediment control, restoration for flushing management, restoration for longitudinal continuum management, rather continuous flow, restoration for land use, restoration for climate changes, restoration for hydro peaking mitigation. So many ways are there, many classes are there, many objectives are there. Suppose suppose we wish to restore the rivers in a morphological aspect, then we should initiate in that way that river should get the specific morphology. If we want to get we want our river to be get restored in a habitat culture, then we should reconnect the natural retention areas which are nearby the river. If we want to control the flow, means quality and quantity of the flow, then we should think of residual and dynamic environmental flows. Environmental flows are the need of the hour. In India, the recent researches have been started for environmental flow studies. Sediment control can be carried out by reopening the sediment source, or rather activating the sediment input. Flushing management can be carried out. Dredging of the reservoirs can be carried out. Longitudinal continuum flow of the river throughout from source to sinks can be carried out by rather removing or modifying the migration barriers like barrage and barriers. Land use practices can be changed. Climatic changes can be adopted with the certain measures. Hydrological means hydro peaking mitigations can be carried out. Means the restoration can be carried out by diverting or coordinating with the hydro peak flows, rather modifying our conventional practices of operating the power plants and mode of production. So the thing is, yes, all these are the ways. This few are the conventional and few are the recent for restoring and conserving the rivers. Conventionally, we can excavate the bed and bank stabilization, reconnect the side arms. We can reconstruct the riparian zone, river widening we can carry out for giving the morphological stability to the rivers. Of course, we can remove or replace the dams, or rather we can lower down the existing floodplains in order to give the uh, uh, good habitat conditions to the river. We can increase the residual and dynamic flow. Environmental flow can be considered in this case, in this aspect. Next to that, removing, lowering, reconstructing weir, flushing thresholds, dredging the sediments from the rivers, removal of the barriers, and many more practices are there. Buffer zone in the sideways of the rivers, extensive sustainable agricultural practice, habitat connectivity for fishes, compensatory reservoirs for reducing the hydropicking effects. All these restoration practices can be means that will going to directly or indirectly that will help the rivers to get it restored back in many fold ways, in many folders. So here the as aforementioned, the environmental flows are the emerging trends in India. These are the actually these are the flows, the quantity as well as quality and the timing of the water flow in the river is to be released in such a way that is which is essentially required to sustain the freshwater and estuarine ecosystem. The this will going to help in sustaining the human livelihoods as well as well-being. This is the common definition of the environmental flows. So actually, we have thought of like river is useful to us in this way, that way. But actually, what river wants for its restoration, that can be summarized in the form of quantitative and qualitative aspect. So here, more specific definition which has been declared in a Brisbane Declaration 2018, uh, which includes the aquatic ecosystems in the form of means here the definition has been generalized in the form of giving the sustainability to the aquatic system, means which includes the rivers, small streams, tributaries, springes, floodplains, even wetlands, lakes, and coastal water bodies, estuaries, and many more. So point is like with the help of environmental flow, we are ensuring such a quantity, such a quality, such a timing, such a duration of the water flow, which should be discharged into river, which should be released into the river, which should be maintained into the river, which will going to sustain the aquatic ecosystem, which will going to help us as a human culture, which will enhance our economics, which will enhance our livelihood as a well-being. NGT, National Grand Tribunal, has also stated that 15 to 20% environmental flow is to be maintained in the rivers of India. Worldwide used environmental flow methodologies, EFA, the environmental flow assessment methods, are being adopted. There are more than 200 methods are being studied by Tharne in 2003. And mainly there are 4 types of methods which are widely used worldwide. Actually, IWMI has urged policymakers to allocate the environmental flow as a priority. The assessment of environmental flow is a new approach in the India. So here, a few of the methods like hydrological methods are very rapid and they are very means less time consuming. On the other hand, holistic approaches are means they take years of time and they includes the multidisciplinary specialism also. We will be going to give a glance of individual method. Hydrological method especially is it requires the past hydrological data. Minimum 20 years of past data is essential to decide that what sort of flow condition is prevailing in the river, and then it can be used in the form of fixed percentage of mean annual runoff which should be released in a river. Tennant method, Tasman methods are very widely used methods. The flow indices like Q95, Q90, 7Q10, 7Q100 are the flow indices which are also widely used to define the environmental flows for hydrological restoration of the rivers. Range of variability, which this approach includes 32 various hydrological parameters, including magnitude, frequency, and timing of the flow. Hydraulic rating method. It accesses the means here the in hydraulic rating method how it is differing from the previous one. Here it addresses the relationship between the aquatic habitat and hydraulics. For an example, there is here the vectored perimeter is correlated with the discharge. As we all know that vectored perimeter will increase with the increase in discharge, but it will considering the morphology of the river, the after certain release of discharge, the vectored perimeter will decrease after certain flow, which is known as inflection point. That inflection point is here used to decide that what sort of environmental flow is to be released, considering all the hydraulic aspects, and that will be useful to maintain the habitat conditions of the river. So here aquatic habitat is given priority. In habitat simulation method, this method actually, in this method, 3 things are being considered: hydrology, hydraulics, and biological response data. Means here a specific target species is considered, and for that species we are considering the required hydrological and hydraulic conditions, and we are defining the this environmental flows that for that particular river basin. IFIL, this is the in-stream flow incremental methodology, is an oldest method which checks the changes in the discharge, how this changes in the discharge affects the structural component of the channel, water quality of the stream, and also it ensures the availability of the microhabitat for the sustainability of the targeted species. So here the targeted species are being considered while applying this approach. FAPSIM, physical habitat simulation model, is a major component in which the stream hydraulics, morphology, and both micro and macro habitat performance are taken care. The fourth one is a holistic method. This is explicitly adopt all the aspect of hydrological, hydraulic, and habitat simulation models. Building block methodology, it segregates the this flow regime into the various components. These components are known as blocks, like dry season base flow, wet season base flow, wet season floods, dry season floods, in which duration of year, what sort of flow is to be established or rather to be maintained in the river. Those sort of blocks are being considered in a building block methodology. DRM is also one of the approach which considers the monthly flow data to separate the high flows and low flows during the normal years and drought years. Whereas drift, downstream risk to impose flow transformation, it takes into account the intra-annual and intra-annual flow regimes. It also takes care of living and non-living parts of the river ecosystem from source to sink. See, working means restoring the river from the source to sink is quite important. We cannot think of the restoration of the part of the river or a stretch of the river. Thus, from the source, from where it is originating and where it is confluencing with the ocean, up to that whole river stretch is to be restored, along with its tributaries. Along with its tributaries. Comparison of e-flows. For rapid assessment, we can go for hydrological methods. Whereas for this hydrological and hydraulic, both the methods are simple as well as quick. But of course, they are not taking biological aspects into the assessment of environmental flow. So they are more or less rapid but less reliable. On the other hand, habitat simulation and holistic methods are reliable, but they require years of data, expert suggestions, a specialized team, and of course, they are costly. Uh, Habitat simulation method is addressing the target species, whereas holistic methods means it takes care of whole river and ecosystem, including living and non-living aspects of the river. This was being noted that flood water improved the Yamuna's water quality. River become healthiest. No doubt, the flood was extreme and disaster created due to that flood. But on the other hand, that flow in the river created the means enhanced the health of the river in this particular 2018. So the somewhere the bottom line of this discussion for the environmental flow, that what we can conclude, we should neither go for overflow, we should nor we should think of trickling flow. We should think of environmental flow which will going to give a very good hydrological flow conditions to the river, good habitat conditions to the river, healthy and adequate sustainability to the species which are living in the river, and of course benefits to the all the living and non-living parts of the river ecosystem. So there are some case studies which have been addressed here. Uh, Here in this particular paper, which is regarding the case studies of the river Ganga, upper river Ganga. The researchers have used the modified building block methodology for computing the environmental flow. They have integrated ecological and geomorphological parameters. And actually, authors have identified the flow depths and flow volumes which are necessary for the target species, as well as they have taken care of lateral connectivity of the river also. Another paper which has been reviewed for the environmental flow assessment for Indian rivers. Here the authors have actually studied various, they have reviewed the different desktop methods applied to the Indian rivers. Here in this paper, they have reviewed the Satluj River HP project, Brahmani River, Baitrani River, and stretch of the Upper Ganga River also. Here, what authors have identified that major areas of the major what they have identified that the hydrological, ecological, and socio-economical data are to be considered on a shareable platform. They should be easily accessible to all the stakeholders or other team members who all are involved in the river restoration team. Number one. Secondly, what they have considered that development of eco-hydrological relationship is quite important. And third thing, what they have addressed in this paper is addressing the pollution due to anthropogenic activity are to be addressed, and simultaneously research in the environmental flow assessment is to be carried out in India. Another paper which has been presented by Dubey and team, which was regarding the rapid methods of like hydrological method, lookup table method, standing method, Tasman method. These methods are being used in upper part of the Narmada River, and this team has found that modified tenant method is more acceptable because its modified tenant method, which is actually known as Tasman method, we gets the monthly based environmental flow. Like in January, what should be the environmental flow? In February and likewise. So realistic value of the AFR we are getting by this modified tenant method. But yes, here in authors have also make concluded that realistic value of the EFR requires the data of ecological aspect also. Some literatures are being collected. Sahu and team has studied on Mahanadi River Basin. Yes, the efforts are just to explore that how this environmental flow assessment case studies have been carried out for different rivers. For Damodar River Basin, for Mahinadi River Basin, Bhattacharya ji has worked on. Joshi and team has worked on a Soni River in MP. On Kaveri River, work has been carried out on environmental flow. Tungabhadra River has means on this river also this hydrological methods, somewhere this habitat simulation method or other holistic methods. For Ganga River, holistic method has been also used. Brahmani and Bhatirani River hydrological data has been used, and hydrological aspects of the environmental flow assessment are being used. So this is what the emerging trend. Now government has also initiated in a restoration of the river projects. Like Ministry of Jal Shakti, Department of Water Resources have many programs like Ganga rejuvenation, interlinking of the rivers, R&D, and dam rehabilitation program, NHP, National Hydrological Programs, and many more. Namami Gange. Yes, this NRCP, National River Conservation Plan, has also actually this project which are submitted by the state government are being taken up by NRCP depending upon what is the degree of pollution in that river, what is the priority to state government, and what is the designated base use. Many, if we can see, like many towns are covered, rivers are covered, states are covered. Many programs are being covered, detailed project reports are being sanctioned, schemes are sanctioned. So these are the initiatives of the government of India. Clean Ganga National Mission for Clean Ganga, NMCG. It works for the pollution control and rejuvenation of the river Ganga by adopting the river basin approach. Intersectoral coordination is the punching feature of this particular society. Comprehensive planning and management to maintain the ecological flow. Yes, to maintain the ecological flow, which is again an environmental flow in river Ganga, to ensure the water quality and sustainability development are the major objective of this NMCG. Yes, NMCG also means there are many projects like Namami Gange, monthly project status, triple P mode, hybrid annuity mode, sanctioning and release administrative approach, project monitoring, biodiversity, and many more. Ministry of Environment and Forestry, this and climate change. This also works on this. They works on the regulation and policies, especially in the context of the water pollution. Here, the NGT plays an important role. We have seen aforementioned also. National Grand Tribunal also works on the they also takes care of the restoration of the rivers at the central level. There are certain constraints in a river conservation and management, no doubt at all. Like there is a lack of coordination and harmony and linkages. Yes, there is a lack of compilation or availability of inventory type of information, data. There is a lack of regarding riparian vegetation and floodplains. Of course, researches are there in the river restoration, but they are yet to be practiced in a field. River on-site river channel experiments are to be attended. Less attention is given to the in-field setting of experiments in the river channel itself. Ecological consideration while addressing the river regulation are to be taken care of, and lack of accuracy in ecological impact assessment due to the deficiencies in sampling designs, rather less sampling or inadequate sampling. So these are the constraints which are to be explored, or rather which are to be resolved. But yes, all the constraints are having a solution if proper coordination, proper attention, and proper teamwork is to be carried out. Then of course we can restore our rivers. All the major challenges and constraints in the river restoration and conservation can be overcome by the combined coordination. Quality of the river can be taken care, anthropogenic activities can be controlled, physico-chemical water qualities are to be assessed, aquaculture is to be addressed, food chains are to be addressed, riparian life is to be addressed, water resources are to be taken care, river dynamics are to be explored, rainfall runoff modeling, hydraulics, land use, land cover, drainage system, policy, laws, regulations, rules, socio-economic aspect, socio-cultural aspect, many more things can be combined together, uh, are to be taken in a team, are to be taken in a coordination, are to be are to be uh, if all these aspects are being are being directed towards the common interest, central government, state government, national groups, academicians, researchers, common person, executive agency, consultants, contractors, scientists. If we all are combining together, we all are just having a common interest and coordinating these gaps, then the river restoration is possible. So finally, let me conclude this session that understanding the river as a dynamic freshwater body from source to sink, it is quite important. Recognizing the river and its tributaries as an internal part of water resource networks. Tributaries are also being given an equal importance. Until we are not addressing the minor tributaries, which may be of 100 or 200 kilometers long even, then those tributaries will also, the enhancing the quality of the tributaries or others habitat conditions of the tributary will of course help in restoring the major rivers. Qualitative and quantitative assessment of the river is quite essential. Bio geochemical processes are to be thoroughly analyzed for restoring the rivers. Catchment improvement, watershed development are to be taken care. Summarizing the benefits and losses, what we are getting and what we are losing are to be balanced. This sort of balance sheet is to be prepared. Rather, need of precautions, need of controlling the point and non-point sources of pollution, policies, rules and regulations, awareness, participation, coordination, teamwork. All these things are to be taken care. And yes, if we all are working at the micro level, and then if we are reaching to the macro level, then of course our rivers will be restored back to their ancient state. rivers, these rivers are actually they are they are expecting now they are urging efforts, they are urging actions from us. They are seeking their survival from us. We can think of means we have actually my in my student project, one of the student project, I mean, myself, I have just guided one on-site river filter, which we can feed on the small tributaries, of course, with the less flow. So horizontal sand filter, to which if the polluted water will pass, when it will reach to the main river, it will get uh, partially treated. So ultimately, the initiatives and the perspectives are to be started in this. Yes, already they have been started, and much more work has been already done. But the things are like the constraint, and the gaps can be fulfilled by the appropriate coordination and the emerging trends which are now need of the hour, especially environmental flows for Indian rivers. With these words, thank you so much. Thank you for your kind attention. And if any question or suggestion from your end, I welcome you all the participants. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Darshan sir.
Thank you, Pranav sir, for your informative lecture. Now, sir, we have two, three questions from the participants in the chat box.
Hmm.
So one is what is the difference between the environmental flow, trickling flow, and overflow?
Sorry, what are the difference between?
What is the difference between environmental flow, trickling flow, and overflow?
Yeah, well, overflow is a excess flow. Overflow is that flow which causes the flooding condition in the river. And trickling flow is that flow which will not be enough for surviving the river itself and for imparting the beneficiary services to the stakeholders, human beings. So we as a researchers, we are neither expecting overflow as a flooding condition, and we are nor we are expecting the trickling flow means drought condition. So we should find that intermediate solution, such a flow in such a particular appropriate quantity as well as quality in terms of fresh water, which should be released in a river, which will neither cause flooding in the river nor it will create a trickling condition in the river.
So next question is how intake structure are used for restore or conserve?
How?
How intake structures are used, whether for restore or conserve?
Well, intact structures can be used as an integrated conservation practices, restoration practices as well as conservation practices for the rivers. Uh, we can reduce the we can restore the runoff, I would say, river runoff. And after restoring that restored runoff, means conserved runoff, or other, I would say, harvested runoff, we can use that harvested runoff in releasing the environmental flow in establishing the environmental flow conditions in a river itself. So appropriate quantity of the water. See what happens actually during the monsoon, in the hydro peaking conditions, the river is getting flooded, and the water, whatever we want for our domestic water requirement or irrigation requirement or industrial requirement, we used to store it, and rest of the water we used to allow to run off in the river. And sometimes if at the same time, if there is water, excess water, surplus water in the flood years, if we are restoring, if we are conserving, if we are harvesting, this input, this flow, this inflow will be used in the next phase of the next duration, next part of the year for making the river in a perennial state. So intact structures can help again in establishing the environmental flow conditions with the they can be helpful in a integrated manner.
How to go about for habitat simulation? What are the parameters to be considered? How to go about in relating the habitat simulation with the environmental flow?
See, habitat simulation method is mainly it takes care of two things. One is the hydrological conditions and hydraulics conditions. These both the conditions are to be fulfilled. They should be appropriated. They should be restored